Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question asks if I can analyze the mental health and personality factors that may be at work in the case of Michele Boudreau Deegan. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So I'll start here with the timeline of the crime, and then I'll move to the mental health and personality factors. So we start on October 24, 2020 in Sudden Valley, Washington. This is near the city of Bellingham. At about 1:15 p.m., a roommate calls the police. He tells them that he found his landlord and her 2 children dead. The landlord was 55-year-old Michele Boudreau Deegan. Deegan apparently gave her 7-year-old twin daughters an excessive quantity of sedatives before shooting them and turning the firearm on herself. There was a custody dispute between Deegan and the father of the girls. She had a protection order against him. It was reported that this was a particularly acrimonious divorce that involved returning to court several times. A few days before the murders, a judge had ordered Deegan to share custody of the twin girls with her estranged husband. The police investigated the father of the girls and determined he was not considered a suspect in the deaths of his daughters. It's believed that Deegan had planned the crime for several days. She was a mental health professional and she worked with a private practice. Apparently, she specialized in marriage and family counseling. There are a number of different reports about what type of mental health professional she actually was. When looking at her credentials, it's easy to see why the media outlets were confused. Behind her name, we see PsyD, LMHC, MFT, NCC, and CCMHC. It appears she was a doctor of psychology, that's the PsyD, but she was licensed to practice as a mental health counselor. That's the LMHC. This is not very common. Usually PsyDs become licensed psychologists. But I have seen situations like this before where people get a license before they complete their doctorate. So they get a license using the master's degree. What doesn't make sense here is specifically earning a PsyD when you already have a counseling license. Her master's degree and a PsyD qualify her to do the same work. They are both practitioner degrees. A PsyD is not a PhD. It's not a research degree. Going back and earning a PsyD would give her a few extra courses in clinical work, but it really doesn't change much. Now moving to the mental health and personality factors. At the time of making this video, this case is recent. There's really not much information out about Deegan, and given the seemingly straightforward nature of the crime, I'm not sure there ever will be more information. As is fairly common in these types of cases, various people have come forward and offered their thoughts about what type of person Deegan was. One neighbor suggested that Deegan was mentally ill. The twin girls were rarely seen outside the home. Child welfare authorities were notified at one point. Others described Deegan as bright, empathic, and kind. It does appear as though Deegan was under a tremendous amount of stress due to the litigation, the custody dispute. It was going on for some time. Before the murders, Deegan had posted a number of items about narcissism on her professional Facebook page. These are items written by other people that she was just posting a link to. On October 19, she posted an article titled, "When They Provoke You to React and They Call You Abusive." On October 23, she posted a number of items related to narcissism. For example, a video that discussed narcissistic parenting and suicide. There was an article about malignant narcissists not getting the justice they deserve. An article that connected domestic violence to narcissism. Another one about the impact of growing up with a narcissistic parent. Several of those items were posted around the same time, about 5 a.m. Others were posted after 6 p.m. The very last post was an article titled, "Narcissistic Parents Are Literally Incapable of Loving Their Children." Now, someone can interpret these data in a variety of ways. I think the most reasonable conclusion is that Deegan believed her estranged husband was narcissistic. There is no information outside of Deegan's behavior suggesting that he was or was not. But Deegan may have felt that he was, and her perception is probably what really mattered in this particular case. Her flurry of Facebook posts right before she committed filicide may have been to offer justification for her actions, to shift blame away from herself, and to assign blame to somebody else. The irony here, of course, is that while protesting the behavior of another person who was allegedly narcissistic, Deegan committed one of the most narcissistic acts that somebody can: filicide. What does the research tell us about the potential mental health characteristics associated with maternal filicide? Here I'm talking in general, not specifically about Deegan. There's no way to know what happened with her based on the information available. First, I'll cover a few terms. Filicide is when a parent kills a child. Maternal filicide means the mother was the perpetrator. There are two special cases of filicide based on the age that have another term associated with them as well. If the child was within the first 24 hours of life, the homicide is called neonaticide. Almost all neonaticides are committed by the mothers. Within the first year of life, it's called infanticide. Many countries have laws in place that decrease the penalties of individuals convicted of infanticide. It's worth noting that the age of 1 year is not universally agreed upon as the cutoff. For example, a 2004 study noted that the cutoff in New Zealand was actually 10 years. The filicide rate in the United States is among the highest in the world. About 500 filicide arrests are made each year in the U.S. 90% of filicidal offenders are biological parents. 10% are step-parents. Step-parents are actually much more likely to commit filicide than biological parents. There's an up to 100 times greater risk. There are 5 main types of filicide, 1 unintentional and 4 intentional. The 1 unintentional type is called maltreatment. The parent is violent but does not intend to cause death. A common precipitant for this type of filicide is persistent crime. Now moving to the intentional types. Here we see altruistic filicide. The mother commits the crime out of love, believing that death is in the best interest of the child. There is unwanted child filicide. The mother conceptualizes the child as an obstacle to her goals. We see acutely psychotic filicide. This could involve delusions and/or hallucinations, like command hallucinations. Here we see no comprehensible motive. And this brings us to the 4th type, which is the most rare. It's referred to as spouse revenge filicide. This is when a mother commits the filicide specifically to cause emotional damage to the father. This almost always happens in the context of custody disputes or infidelity. Generally, this type of filicide is considered difficult to prevent because it tends to happen without warning. Roughly a third of maternal filicides involve the mother bringing an end to her own life. With paternal filicide, the rate is almost doubled, mostly due to the higher chance of completing. There's not really much of a difference in terms of the probability of attempting. The most common methods of completing filicide are battering, smothering, strangling, and drowning. Firearms or knives are rarely used, although as age increases, so does the likelihood of using a weapon. What are the risk factors for maternal filicide? We see quite a few here: being a full-time caregiver, marital status of single, a low educational level, a young age, many filicidal mothers are in their 20s, a history of mental disorders like depression, substance use, psychosis, personality disorders, and thoughts of self-harm. When they have psychotic delusions, persecutory delusions are the most common. We also see low intelligence. As we can see from the description of filicide, Michele Deegan was an unlikely perpetrator of this type of crime. Although she did have a major risk factor for the spouse revenge filicide, specifically the custody dispute, other protective factors should have more than compensated. For example, she had a high educational level, she was 55, not in her 20s or in her teens, she was not a full-time caregiver, and she appeared to be intelligent. I think her behavior aligns more closely with spouse revenge or altruistic as opposed to the other types of filicide, but of course there's no way to know. It would really come down to what was a stronger influence, her desire to hurt her estranged husband or to protect her daughters from some type of perceived harm. The next question I'll cover here is, how could a mental health counselor do this? There is this sense that mental health professionals should be relatively immune or at least somewhat protected from behaviors like this. On her website, Deegan wrote about how she works from an empowerment model, helping clients to respond to problems in a healthy way, including helping them to improve communication. She even specifically touted areas of specialty like uncoupling without hostility, counterparenting with a hostile ex, and divorce and remarriage. I think what stands out here is the hypocrisy. She was helping people to deal with bad relationships, yet she committed filicide. It makes me wonder what kind of advice she was giving to her clients, and I would also wonder if she could really help people in those situations without being biased. Sadly, nobody's immune from the stressors of narcissism, whether the narcissism is real or perceived. We don't know if Deegan's interest in narcissism started because of her personal experiences, or if she became interested in the topic as part of her education. One gets the sense that she was taking her personal life experiences and trying to convert them into therapeutic practice. If she was doing this, she was doing one of the worst things that a counselor can do. There's a reason that a judge would recuse themselves if they were presiding over a case involving other family members. Similarly, counselors lose objectivity if a client's experience mirrors their own. For example, individuals who have a history of substance use are overrepresented among substance use counselors. Many people think this is a great idea. They can take their life experience and help people who went through the same thing. Yet, in my clinical experience, observing other counselors, I have seen many instances where the bias far outweighs the special personal experience of using substances. The last point I want to make is about the term counterparenting. I've seen this many times, especially in the context of relationships affected by narcissism. It's the idea that one parent has to undo the damage to a child caused by the other narcissistic parent. This is a legitimate concern. Narcissists definitely cause damage in many situations, and they make co-parenting a nightmare. But here's what worries me about this term. I've seen many examples where somebody claims to be counterparenting when they are actually the narcissist or both parents are narcissistic. The question then becomes, who gets to decide who is narcissistic and who is not? This is why when going through a custody dispute, parents need to go see a counselor. The actual facts of the case need to be established by an objective party. One simply can't claim, oh, my partner is narcissistic, therefore I need to counterparent. Implying that one has to conduct counterparenting can simply be gaslighting. The other partner can simply make the same claim, and we're back to square one. So my problem isn't specifically with the term counterparenting. Rather, it's with the way that people use it. People just claim that they have this burden on them without anybody really establishing what the facts are in the situation. So what I see so often is parents simply hurling this accusation at each other with no actual basis contained in the accusation. An accusation by itself isn't really evidence. It has weak evidentiary value. Actual concrete facts are evidence, actual circumstances that can be documented, and those are rarely brought up in these custody disputes. So to sum up this case, this was a terrible tragedy that likely could have never been predicted. It was perpetrated by an offender who possessed myriad protective factors and represented herself as skilled enough to understand what was going on and not to resort to violence. So she failed in many ways, not just as a parent and a citizen, but also as a mental health professional. Those are my thoughts on the Michele Boudreau Deegan case. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.